Hello, and welcome to Mike, DJ, and Doc, the show that plants seeds for cultivating new culture. Hello, and welcome back to the Mike, DJ, and Doc podcast. Hope you've been doing well. And we want to welcome any of new listeners. If you tune in for the first time, we welcome you. And if you've been listening to us for quite some time now, you're family, and we're glad to have you back. So today on the podcast, first of all, Doc, how you been?
Hey, I'm doing well. What about you, Mike?
Been doing pretty good.
Good.
Uh,
Yes.
we're gonna be going without our brother DJ Cornerstone today. He's out doing some more things with his fundraiser coming up on July 29th, Will Work for Food, where he's
Excellent.
teaching Chicago footwork dancing and raising money to feed the food pantry. So that brother's out busy doing that today. So it's just gonna be you and I, Doc. All right.
Okay. Yes. All right.
Well, check it out.
Man.
At the time of this recording, I have just came back from visiting the Big Apple, New York City, the 4th of July
Yes.
weekend. And I tell you what, Doc, for the first time when I went there to see everything that I was able to see, I tell you what, it was a tremendous experience of history, culture, architecture, and I mean all those different things, food.
Right.
And I tell you what, it was such a great adventure. I definitely look forward to going back. I tell you, some of the spots I
Yes.
visited was one moment we went down to Ground Zero where the Twin Towers were originally located
Okay.
at. And to
Right.
see
Wow.
that area, the big hole in the ground, basically to where they have made it into a monument. And when you look around the outside of the edge, it's engraved all the names of the individuals that lost their lives on that dreaded day. And I tell you what, it was a moment
Um,
when you sit there and realize that how much destruction happened in that moment to see those huge buildings come down and the debris and everything that reeled over there. But to see where it's come to now is
okay.
definitely a statement for resilience in our country. And I just want to leave that there, because it shows
Yes.
the fortitude that we have in this country here. And
Right.
right next to it, they built a new tower called the Freedom Tower, which is the tallest skyscraper in New York, the tallest. And I tell you, to look at it from the ground looking
Mm,
up, which they have an observation area where you can go up in there. I didn't do that one, but I'm gonna
right.
tell you a little bit later which one we did do. And
Okay.
to look at it from the ground up, all you can see is just so huge. I mean, and the
Right.
design and everything is so huge. So, I mean, we had the opportunity to do that, and then I got a chance to walk past Madison Square Garden. We couldn't go in there because
Okay.
we didn't schedule a tour or anything. They'd take you on a tour in there, but we didn't get the chance to go in there.
Mm,
But I tell you what, some of the more exciting things was that evening we went to Times Square. Now you see all those lights down there and everything. To see it at night,
right.
it's just lit up by all of the advertisements and all the different billboards and all that stuff. It lights up the whole area down there. And I tell you what, this
Okay.
it's just amazing. You can
Well,
see stuff on TV,
right.
but when you see it in person, it gives you a whole nother perspective, of
Right.
really how huge
Yes.
things are down there, especially marketing.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
it's such
Oh.
a big key to everything. Marketing is so huge. And we
Right.
went past the City Music Hall where at that
Mm.
time Miss Diana Ross was performing to a sold out crowd. So she's still touring.
Wow.
Diana Ross
Diana
from the
Ross.
Supremes, Motown.
Yes. Wow.
She was there that night.
Yes.
So, like I said, that was
Okay.
interesting to see that. A couple other
Right.
things we did was we rode bikes over the Brooklyn Bridge, which that
Okay.
was interesting. And this is another thing about New York. All the food delivery uh, places that we have out here in Chicago and Joliet, Will County, even in Chattanooga, you got people that Uber foods and all that stuff.
Right.
You see so many cyclists everywhere zooming up and down the road with these packages of food and packages and different things like that. I mean, you better be
Mm.
careful walking in that bike lane because I'm telling you,
Okay.
they be moving.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's one of the
Okay.
first things that I noticed when we walked around
Mm.
there because it's a lot of hustle and bustle and everything. But
Right.
people are polite, but they let you know they got somewhere to go. Don't stand in front of them. You know, they be polite, but they let you know they on the move. And that I tell you what, the bikes zooming up and down, the lights, they don't wait for the lights to turn the walk signal. They look and see if it's clear to walk across, and then they go. Something like that.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
It's safer for you to wait for the walk signal, but hey, they check the lanes. If ain't nothing coming, they go. They not waiting there. So that was interesting to see that and see all the electric bikes and all the different things and stuff like that. So that was fun. Another thing was we actually got to go to a New York Mets game too, because you know my daughter, she's a big sports event. She likes sports events, so she kind of scheduled that so we could just go there. It was just to be in the atmosphere of the Mets, and they was playing the San Francisco Giants at the time.
Right.
And like I said, they won. They was having a losing streak up to that point, but they won that game. They had like 2, 3 like back-to-back home runs off this pitcher within the first 3 innings.
Gotcha.
So
interesting.
So that kind of was over quick for San Francisco. So that was good. We got to see the Citi Field Stadium, which is here. Check this out. Now, you know, sometimes when you see some of the baseball games on TV and we be like, well, man, ain't nobody going to the games and stuff like that. You see all those empty seats in the stands and stuff like that. Well, I want to tell you, at this game in New York, as big as that stadium was, it was a ton of people at the baseball game.
Right.
We rode the subway down there and you see New York Mets gear on everywhere. And there was a ton of people at the baseball game.
Okay, right.
So folks are going to baseball games. I guess when you see them on TV, just they capture the section that maybe don't have that many people. But it was a lot of people. It wasn't sold out, but it was.
Okay, right.
It had a lot of people there for a regular game. Now I would say here in White Sox, we love our White Sox, but guess what? We usually don't come out to the games till if they're in the playoffs.
Okay.
If they're in the playoffs, then the stadium start filling up.
Yeah.
But if regular season game, you may see a good percentage of them.
Gotcha. Yes.
But out there in New York, they serious about their sports teams.
Right.
All of them. They serious about their sports teams.
Interesting.
Yes. So one other thing I'm gonna mention, then we're gonna go into our subject today.
Okay.
The morning before we left, the Monday morning before we left, we got up early and we went down to Times Square again. And we went to the portion or the section where they had Good Morning America at, right? So we was down there and I told my wife, I said, well, you know, I want to go down and check it out, you know, see what it's like in the morning time. Cause you know, they always pan the camera around, show people that's down there outside the studios and everything.
Right.
So we got down there. So we was thinking this holiday weekend, maybe they're not going to have the biggest stars there like Robin Roberts or Michael Strahan or some of the others. But it turned out they had Michael Strahan there. Okay. And while they were setting up, he came out to the crowd and everything. He shook hands, took selfies and different things. And he's a very, I want to say, people-oriented person. He took time out there. And I mean, I know it's part of marketing too, but he still could have been like, well, no, I don't want to do this stuff. But he was just like an everyday person, came out there and just hung out, you know, for a few moments that he had. And ended up getting in the selfie with him and stuff like that. So that was, like I said, that's just kind of stuff that when you go to New York, you're like, hey, I want to experience some of this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
gotcha.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Good deal.
So leading into what we're talking about today, about sitting on the bench. Now, this comes directly out of your book of Winning with Wisdom.
Okay.
This comes directly one of the chapters in your book.
Yes.
And setting the table for this conversation is, I'm going to use one of your quotes. Players on the bench are just as valuable as players in the game. I mean, we come from Michael Strahan, who was a football player in New York.
Right. Yes.
He was one of the top pass rushers in his career. He's a Hall of Fame. And we also see a Hall of Fame inductee. And we also see him on not only in news media, but we also see him as a sports analyst on different things. But he was a player that, guess what? He didn't sit on the bench, but it was people behind him. We talking about the ones that are sitting on the bench waiting for the opportunity to get
Right.
into the game. All right.
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna start right there. We're gonna start right there. So Doc,
Yes.
check it out. When you're
Okay.
on the bench, how do you stay committed while knowing that you're waiting, for lack of a better word, to get into the game? How do you stay committed?
I mean, first of all, you got to be patient. You got to have patience and you got to understand the process, and realize that time and chance happens to them all.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you got to realize your time and chance is going to come. And by you realizing that gives you strength to stay engaged,
Mm-hmm.
to stay consistently engaged. That when your moment does come, you don't miss it because you're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
So, for one, you got to understand, you got to have patience. Understand it's a process. Understand that my time is going to come. We're going to look at this from sports to life,
Mm-hmm.
because it goes multiple ways. I mean, James Harden at one point used to come off of Oklahoma City's bench. Kevin Durant was out there on the starter, Westbrook, a few others. He would come off the bench and be ready and be like a loose cannon. It's like, hey, I was just waiting on my moment. He
Mm-hmm.
became a superstar from coming off the bench. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the pressures of being in the starting lineup. He could just come off the bench and be loose. So it has its advantages, and you got to look at it as that way. This has its advantage. And I don't care who you are, at some point in life, you're going to come off the bench. You're going to be the person in behind. Maybe it could be in the beginning, it could be in the middle stage of life, or it can be in the latter stage. You know what I'm saying? There are some major guys in sports now that can't even get a job with certain teams. We can mention some Carmelo Anthony's, Cam Newton at the end of his year went from being MVP and all that to they like he can't even play football no more. It's life. But so at the end of his stage of career, they became coming off the bench guys. We all go through it. It's humility. You
Oh.
could be a high school elite athlete, NIL. Nowadays, you get paid. I know plenty of guys.
Mm-hmm.
But later on in your career, can't even get a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna yeah.
And see, that's the challenge right there, because see, like you said, that adjustment, because like you
Yes.
said, when you have been the man basically since grade school, because most of them
Right.
started out with the talent in grade school. Somebody
Right.
seen something in them, or maybe their parents had talent that they just inherited. Their
Yes.
size maybe helped them to stand out amongst everybody else, or
Yes.
maybe they're just their drive. Because
Correct.
guess what? Sometimes you can come from certain areas, certain communities that your whole dream is that is your ticket out,
Right.
and
Correct.
you basically playing for your life. It's not just
Right.
a game to you. So, like you said, they start out at that point, but guess what? Even when you, like you mentioned, when they reach the pinnacle of their career or their dream start, it's
Yes.
still a backside to that.
Correct. Yes.
And see, at that point, where's your heart and mind at that point when things switch?
Correct. Yes.
When things switch, because it is a
Yes.
switching point on that backside. Because
Yes, it
we
is.
all know that, guess what? Uh Father Time never loses. We all
Correct.
getting older. Our bodies
Right.
all change. No matter what our
Yes.
mental, physical state at one point, it all starts to change.
Right.
And like you said, that humility part is adjusting. How do you treat people now? Or how did you treat them when you was on the pinnacle? How you treat them now? You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Do you
Right. Yes.
did you treat them right going up there?
Right.
And now that you put in the position that you got to come back down, but you don't want to burn your bridges.
Nah,
So
correct. You
when you
don't.
sitting on the bench, you don't
Yes.
want to burn your bridges. You want to stay committed to being what, humble along the process going up.
Yes.
Not wait to
Yes.
the backside to come down. And all of a sudden now it clicks to, guess what? Everybody not rushing to get my autograph anymore.
Correct.
Everybody's not giving me a phone call to set for appearances anymore.
Right. Yes.
You
Oh yeah.
still life still goes on.
It really does. Yes. It does. And even we can go to Chicago.
Sure.
Let's look at Derrick Rose,
Okay.
MVP. Come on, had Chicago on the franchise guy. I mean, look at everything he go through. He's still playing, but he's not as irrelevant as he was. Now he's on his way to Memphis, back where his college career started. But guess what? He's coming off the bench. So he started as the man, but now, he's in a different role in his life. It doesn't make him no more successful from then into now. You just got to be able to value wherever you are there in life, whether you're the man or not the man, or woman, or vice versa. Because the world goes around. It goes around. So stay humble because it goes around. There's some guys that were so good, but they had these diva attitudes. We still in sports, and I'm gonna name them: Allen Iverson, Terrell Owens, T.O. These guys had these such arrogant attitudes. Allen Iverson didn't want to practice. He just want to show up to the games and play. He had a problem with practice. Like, man, why y'all, and he even, so that was cool when you the man. But as your years go on, and things begin to decline, people think, do we want these knuckleheads in our locker room? Do we want this spirit on our teams? You know what I'm saying? It can mess you up later. Terrell Owens was the same way. All the stuff and the antics that he would bring, you know what I'm saying, couldn't be told nothing. I'm like, man, so now nobody wants you. So why? Because, definitely. But
yeah,
you gotta,
like you said, your arrogance done outweighed your talent.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's what the bottom line is.
And that's there. Yes, and that's it. So man, you got to stay humble. Like, look at the guy from Miami. He's getting ready to retire now, but he's gonna be on their coaching staff.
Oh, Udonis Haslem.
Yes. Look how long he's been around the team.
Yes.
Because he's humble. Humble off the bench.
I used to watch that because he hung around, like I said, a long time in that spot.
Yes.
And he had to be bringing something more to the table than just his basketball talent.
Correct.
Because you only keep people around like that because they're bringing something to the table.
Right, yeah.
Because they could have been let him go. He's still getting $1 million salary just for being on the bench.
Yes, he is.
Yes. And when he retired, guess what? They gave him a huge celebration. He didn't have huge numbers. No, he didn't have huge contribution, but he was steady and committed.
Right, and that's it.
He was committed.
Definitely. And he owned that spot. Yes. He wasn't trying to, hey, coach, put me in the game. I'm here. No, he just owned. I was on the championship team with D-Wade, LeBron them. How long ago was that? Chris Bosh, where is he at now? Days, so if you think about it, it's so, and he's still there. Now he just, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Hey, so and so you have to realize the importance and the value of when you're in a season of sitting.
Yes.
Waiting on your moment. Stay ready. Keep a good attitude. Yes.
Absolutely.
Go to work every day on time, even though you're not the boss yet. You smarter than your boss. You got, you know what I'm saying? You know how to teach your boss work. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Here, hold on a second. You said something right there. Being committed underneath leadership, because we talk about leadership on here.
Yes.
Being committed under leadership when you know that leadership above you is, I want to say, not where it should be. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom, lack of motivation. I don't know, but you are subject to your leadership. All right. So, like I said, in a situation like that, how do you stay committed when you can see the organization you're part of, or the basketball team, or the community event group, or whatever, that you can see it can be so much better, and leadership is not there, but yet you have to be subject to it. How you stay committed in a situation like that, Doc?
Once again, it's humility and understanding who you are, and you got to know your value. Know your value, and when you are a true leader, you understand that, man, I can lead from on top, or I can lead from on bottom.
Okay,
I don't have to have the title.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? And there's some people, man, things come together because they're there. They're not the CEO. They're
Mhm.
not the pastor. You know what I'm saying? They're not the foreman.
Mhm.
They're not the boss, but they bring strength and stability to the core. They
Yes.
make things happen because
Mhm.
they're put it like this. They're the brains. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
They may not be the aim on the billboard,
Right.
but they the brains in behind it. See, it's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Can you catch that? They're
Uh-huh.
the brains in behind what makes this happen. There are
Uh-huh.
some people that are superstars today
Mhm.
because it's somebody that had the brains to make it happen.
Mhm.
You feel what I'm saying? That
Yes.
makes them, and even back in the day, there were some people, music in the music industry and stuff, there would be people out front, but they wasn't really the ones singing. We often heard of Milli Vanilli and other
That's
stories like
that's
that. It's like they
right.
had the look, but they
Mhm.
didn't have the brains.
Or the talent.
You know what I'm saying? There you go. You know what I'm saying? So, and then it could have been a part of who they know that put them in a position and not what they know.
Yeah, see, that when you mention that,
See what I'm
that is
saying?
totally that's
Yeah.
totally somebody behind the scenes orchestrating that. And it
Yes.
fooled millions and millions of people.
Mm.
And like I said,
Oh, wow.
the outcome of that was, of course, once the truth came out, they
Mhm.
fell from off the charts and everything else. And I think eventually one of them ended up committing suicide
Right. Wow.
because it couldn't handle what had happened. And see, that's why
Yes.
you got to be careful when you're not being your authentic self out there.
Correct. I got
Because
you.
see, sometimes
Yes.
when you're not being authentic and you fooling a lot of people, and sometimes you get on a grand scale. But guess what?
Mm.
Eventually, the truth will come out. And when
Right.
the truth comes out, are you able to recover from what's done happened, from the failure in that? So yeah, we got to stay authentic. And
There you
and
go. Yes. And
that brings
that's
me to
it.
my next point here is being truthful and honest while you in that position on the bench. If you, for instance, if you're dealing with a situation where as the people over you are not where you think they should be or whatever, you
Mhm.
you got to somehow find that honest dialogue between you two so that you can get an understanding of each other and what's on the table there. Because
Right.
if you don't have an idea of what the leadership wants to do, and then
Mhm.
you're trying to fit into that, well, guess what? You can find yourself, like you said, in a, how do I want to say, a grinding situation with no
Right.
fruit coming out of it.
That's
And
good.
here's my question though, Doc. How do you know when it's time to step away from that situation if you can't find that common ground?
I got you. And okay. And with that, I would say, first of all, trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
Be clear on your moves. Make sure you're just not in your feelings or your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because for one, there's a story in the Bible about David and Saul. David knew who he was as a person. He knew he was a leader. You know what I'm saying? He
Mm-hmm.
knew he had skills to lead. He knew he was a king. But Saul was over him and Saul was the king.
Mm-hmm.
Saul tried to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
David had plenty of opportunity to touch Saul, to take him out. But David understood, even though I don't respect you as a person and you're over me, I respect the position
There you
of
go.
your leadership. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That position, because one day I'm gonna be in that position.
I
And there's
see.
gonna be some people that's not gonna like me because everybody not gonna like you no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But I want them to respect my position. So David even wrote, touch not God's anointed. I mean, those are in leadership
Mm-hmm.
and do them no harm, which profit no harm.
Mm-hmm.
And he stayed humble. Come on, glory to God.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To the position that Saul was in over him. Even though he didn't respect him as a king, because he realized that the guy had he just, the story goes,
Mm-hmm.
but he never tried to take him out. He never stooped to his level. You know what I'm saying? And he faithfully did his job. He played the harp for Saul. When Saul was irritated and frustrated, David knew how to calm and ease the nerves. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? He stayed humble. What? Because he knew who he was. And he knew my moment is coming.
Mm-hmm.
My
See,
time is coming. Go
because
ahead.
right, like you said, at that point, like you said, we getting to the scriptures a little bit, but David had been anointed already by the prophets. And he knew,
Yes.
and like you say, he already knew his value and his worth. And
Yes.
like I said, he kept his integrity along with his humbleness. Because like you
Yes.
mentioned, it's several times that he had opportunity to take Saul out and he
Yes.
didn't do it. Even the men
Correct.
who was following him said, "Why don't you get him? This is your opportunity." And that's when he oops.
Yes.
Okay. And that's when he told them, "Look, hey, he's the king. You can't
Yes.
do that to God's king." Because remember,
Yes.
Saul was called by God to be the first king through the
Yeah.
prophet. So
Yeah.
you got to remember, it's a bigger plan than you are able to see.
Right.
It's a bigger
And,
picture than you're able to see.
and that's
So when you're
powerful
dealing with
right there.
somebody who is, like you said, less than, it's your job, like you say, to be humble and be supportive of
Yes.
of the position and recognize
Yes.
that guess what, this is bigger than just you. And I
Correct.
like how you brought that out about getting in your feelings, because we get in our feelings sometimes and we let that control all our decision making.
Yes. Ooh,
We let it
Jesus.
control all our
Mm.
decision making.
Yes.
And when you
Yes.
making decisions based off your feelings alone,
Yes.
it's usually not the right decision.
Mm. Wow.
But let me park here real quick.
Uh-huh.
I attended the conference down in Orlando, Florida. It was the
Mm.
International Leadership Summit, and they had Dr. Anita Phillips on there, and she is a minister down in, I want to say, in Tennessee, that was on the panel, and she mentioned something about how our feelings, we shouldn't ignore them totally. I know sometimes we have been taught that you need to ignore your feelings and do what's right and blah blah blah, but your feelings what feed your thought process. Now they need to be held within check, because remember, like you say, we can't make uh rush decisions off how we feel about a situation. We need to take all
Mm-hmm.
these things in, but we shouldn't just totally discount them too, because sometimes certain feelings that we have are warning systems,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to adhere to that warning that maybe something is not right. Most people in the probably secular world calls it what? Your gut feeling.
Okay.
Like I make a decision off a gut feeling or something like that.
Right.
Well, we in the Christian world, we said discernment, right?
Yes.
So it's the same thing. It's that feeling that leads to that thought, discernment of what that
Right.
situation is. And
Okay.
we have to be mindful of that, and so that we weigh all those and take all those things in consideration before, like you say, making a rush decision. But you don't
Yes.
want to get down the road and regret something that you done, because living with regret from maybe an outburst in a situation that probably destroys everything of trust that you have built up to that point. Because guess what? Nobody wants to follow a hothead. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and that's the truth of it. Nobody wants to follow a hot somebody who, as once the pressure is on, they explodes.
Okay.
So, like I said, we need to keep that in mind. So as we are in this holding pattern, like you said, sitting on the bench, I like that. As we in
Right.
this holding pattern, we need to take those things and just not totally ignore our feelings. All right. All right. Moving on. Being honest about your strength and weaknesses while on the bench. Being honest
Yes.
about your strength and weaknesses while on the bench. Doc,
Yes.
how do we deal with that?
I mean, you have the opportunity, to continue to perfect your craft. You have the opportunity to look at what's out before you, that's what's working and what's not working. And that's
Mhm.
what gives you the advantage. Sometimes you're under poor leadership or on a poor team, or somebody's poor out in front of you, only for God to train you on everything not to do.
Preach.
You got to know how to accept that in life. I'll say it again. Sometimes you're under poor leadership poor management on a terrible team. The guys are, or in a terrible position, working a terrible facility around terrible things to learn everything not to do.
Reach.
Do you understand
I
that
hear
when you
you.
get in your position,
I hear you, Doc.
you know what to do and definitely what not to do.
Yes.
You understand? And you
Yes.
and there it is.
Yeah,
And that's
because
it.
you got to think about it. A few Saturdays ago, I was with our outreach ministry,
Mhm.
and we were down at the local Morning Star Mission, where we go in there
Mhm.
and we have Bible study with men off the street that's going in
Right.
this program from recovering from drug
Mhm.
addiction, alcohol addiction, different things like that. And I talked on the lesson of God, is it my season? And we talked about an area of mostly, some people say, well, it's your season. They think of what it's your blessing season.
Okay.
It's your blessing. It's your time to be blessed. And we
Right.
all want to be in that season.
Gotcha.
We glad when God puts us
Right.
in that season of blessing.
Yeah.
But what about your season of learning,
Yes.
of development? We don't tend to say thank God for those seasons.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But whatever season you in, it's your season. It is your season. And what I discussed with them was, guess what? You may not be where you want to be, but it's not the end of your story. This season of your life is what God intended for you to do, to learn or develop for where He's called you to go.
Right.
The story doesn't end here. It's up to you to make the choice which direction and who you going to listen to.
Yes.
Is you going to listen to God direct you? Or are you going to continue to what? Be in your feelings of all the things that was done to you in the past, which you can't change? Or are you going to say, this is my season for development and growth? This is my season of learning who I can be friends with and who I can't be friends with. You know what I'm saying? Who I'm gonna listen to as an influencer or not. This is your season. Decide and understand that. Because guess what? If you make this shift in this point of time to go forward in a positive manner, you don't have to look back where you come from.
Right.
Because that was just a stepping stone to get you to where you headed.
Right. Yes.
So when you say, when you mention about being in a situation where you're on a terrible team, or you're under bad leadership on your job or organization, ministry, or whatever, this is your time still. Just because it ain't a blessing and bountiful time, it's still your season.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's still your season.
That's good.
Yes. And you have to be what? We're gonna jump back just for a minute, committed to what's going on with the process.
Right. Yes.
Because if you're studying, if you're researching, if you're spending time with God, if you're doing whatever, going to school, if you're planning, if you are getting advice from good people, or you seeking good advice, this is still your season of development for the next level. For those who are trying to get to the next level. So I'm saying it's your season.
Yes.
So when you're in that situation where you're behind somebody, don't get in your feelings and say, well, you know what? I'm gonna throw up my hands and I'm gonna walk away. Because I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be transparent. I have felt like that in some situations in my life.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I felt like, hey, you know what? I could do bad on my own by myself.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
I could move on in another different direction and not even look back.
Right.
But sometimes I realized, and like I said, when you say regret, it's been some times that I turned my back on some things that I wish now that I would have held on to. Because I can see the value in where they're at now.
Okay.
And if I had stuck it out, I could probably be reaping a little bit more of those benefits now if I stuck it out during the tough times. So I'm hoping that through this podcast that we're encouraging someone to make some life transforming decisions, because that's why we bring this podcast to you, our listeners, because we're hoping to plant seeds that cultivate new cultures. And that culture could be not a culture of your environment, but a culture of your mind. And that's where we're going today. So I tell you what, Sitting on the bench. We talking about sitting on the bench. We're using a sports metaphor, but we're talking about sitting on the bench. Now, when you are sitting on the bench, is it some certain key, I want to say key tips that you want to share with us on planning your future?
Yes. I mean, once again, why you're there and attitude will determine your altitude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once we hadn't dealt with that, having the right attitude. But once again, understanding your purpose, knowing who you are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it becomes challenging when you don't know who you are, because you become insecure, you become jealous, you know, you envy. Realize, man, my moment is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I can celebrate what's happening in your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You just built a home from the ground up. You just did this, your business. I can celebrate. Why? Because I know I'm in position. I'm next in line.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I keep a right attitude. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't allow, you know, my feelings. Let's go back to that because I really want to make
Oh,
sure
take
people
your
catch
time, man.
this.
Take your time.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Help us.
when you're in that season of sitting and waiting, sometimes things look terrible,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes you get mistreated when you're on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys throw their towels, you know, just metaphors, things, you know, happen. You know, good players come off the bench throwing stuff. I done watched in baseball guys beating the coolers and, you know, after they strike out. Some things go on that bench that, you know, like, wait a minute. Man, you know, they could cause conflict. You
Yes.
know, when people, and a lot of teams fight, guys go at it
Yes.
on the same team, you know, and so you know it's things of that nature. But watch, but here it is. But here it is. You got to be ready, and you cannot get caught up in your feelings. When I say feelings, where you allow your feelings to govern your next move. Say, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
something happens to you at church or whatever, I'll never give again. I'll never trust nobody. I ain't supporting nobody. I ain't doing nothing. You just allow your feelings to govern, to create law and order in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you say you're a believer
Mm-hmm.
or a Christian. Now you can never be guided by the power of the Holy Ghost, the power of God, you know, intuition, those that are not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, saved and understand that terminology.
Mm-hmm.
You could never. Why? Because you've already governed your future based upon what has already happened in your past.
Mm-hmm.
That's when your feelings will mess your life up. When you set laws and order based upon them. What
Mm-hmm.
I'll never do. Well, baby, don't you know we done all went through some stuff? You know what I'm saying? But we cannot because then you'll never be loving. You'll never give again. You'll
Mm-hmm.
never, you feel what I'm saying? You'll never trust again. And what, you know, and you'll create pain everywhere you go. Why? Because you look at everybody from the painful situation that
Mm-hmm.
you've allowed to govern,
Oh yeah.
you know, so that's what we mean by feelings. So you have to be mindful of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you start looking through the lens of life like that. Of
Oh,
like you said, through pain. And then we know that guess what?
yes.
People hurt other people.
Got
You
you.
know what I'm saying?
And yes.
And that then you need to really get that deeply spiritually corrected.
Yes. Yes, you do.
And see that goes back to
Yes.
like I said, you gotta realize, guess what? This is whatever happened to you back then, it's not the end of your story. You still have
Mm,
enough life in front of you to change your direction.
yes.
Change your direction. But you gotta change your perspective. You got to
Correct.
change your perspective.
Yes.
Sitting on the bench, you got to change your perspective of where you come from.
And
Because if you still dealing
yes.
with an old perspective, you're gonna get old results.
Right.
So
That's
you
good.
started looking at it from a different perspective and bigger perspective. Sometimes you just need to look at a
Yes.
bigger perspective so that you can get a better understanding. That you have more
Yes.
options,
And
more
that's it.
choices to make.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to go to different areas that you are not used to going to.
Right.
Sometimes you have to make friends
Yes.
with just what they don't look like you, but you need to be available or friendly with other people that don't look like you so that you understand other things.
Right.
You got to get outside, how do I want to say, your comfort zone.
Okay.
And sometimes that's the most challenging part, because that's fearful.
Gotcha.
We fear probably stepping outside of what we know. Because guess what? When we step outside of that, guess what? Especially if we don't have faith
Right. Correct.
to move
Yes.
forward.
Yes.
If we don't have faith, if we're not operating in
Yes.
faith, it makes it very hard to step outside that comfort zone
Yes.
to realize
That's
what
it.
happened. And then, like you
Right.
said, we have mentioned on this show, this podcast several times before. Sometimes you self sabotage yourself
Yes.
in order to stop you from stepping outside of that wall. I want to, lack of a better word, shoot your own self in the foot, cause your own self pain
Right.
that you could avoid by just having the strength and the courage to step outside that. And I tell you, that's the challenge. I know it's easier said than done, but start with small steps. You don't have to change the world in one swoop. Start with one thing that you didn't used to do that's different, that opens a new door. Start reading a book from a different country. Start learning foods from different countries. Quincy Jones said when he was out traveling, in order for him to understand more about the world, he learned the world through cuisine, through food. So when he traveled through different areas, he would try the dishes of the area, and he would learn how they make them and what went into them and what was some of the original purpose behind it and different things. And that's how he learned the cultures of when he traveled all over the world, is through the food that he would eat. So guess what? If you go to Europe, you ain't going over there for collard greens and fried chicken.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You going there because you want to try some of the cuisine there. When I was just in New York, for some reason is big for bagels. So we went to a bagel restaurant a couple of times. And I tell you what, they put some of everything on them.
Okay.
I tell you what, I had one with a pastrami bagel with the $1,000 and sauerkraut and all this stuff. And I tell you, it's one of the best bagels I ever ate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
So why would I go to New York trying to find food that we have here in Chicagoland?
Gotcha. Right.
I'm going there because I
good.
want to experience everything.
Yes.
I got cheesesteak. We got cheesesteak here, but they said cheesesteak on the East Coast is better. I wanted to try it. And it was good. It was good, but it didn't impress me that much. It was cheesesteak. But I wanted to try it. So the point I'm trying to make is try to step outside of your comfort zone, something that you're familiar with, so that you can learn something else. And that opens up your options to whereas it can help you move on from from a bad past. Because all of us didn't have a bad past. I mean, let's face it. Some of us good. We don't want to throw away that, but we just don't want to forget and not have it as a reminder to keep moving forward, but not as an anchor to hold you back.
Good.
You know what I'm saying? A reminder to move you forward, but not an anchor to hold you back.
Right. Yes.
You know, right?
That's good.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to be back with There It Is, coming from our very own Doc.
There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is.
All right. Hey, once again to our audience, as we get ready to wrap up this segment here today with There It Is, and dealing with sitting on the bench was our topic of discussion. I want to bring up a scripture in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 57 and 58. It says, "Therefore, my beloved, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain." And then it says, "Thanks be unto God, which always giveth us the victory through Jesus Christ our Lord." And today, as we deal with sitting on the bench and looking at this, developing the mindset of, I'm all right, understanding who you are, knowing that you're in line, that you're in the right place. I'm on the team. I'm active in life, because there are a lot of people in life that are inactive, that are not doing nothing. So by you being on the bench, that lets you know that you're in. You're a part of something. You know what I'm saying? You're making things happen. You're there. And in the midst of it all, according to this scripture, it say just be steadfast, be unmovable. For as much as you know that your labor is not in vain. You got to realize that your life has a purpose, whether you're out front or you're in the back. You got to realize that God can use you no matter where you are. And when you understand who you are and when you understand your position and your place, you won't undermine, because it's all about the battlefield of the mind. We always talk about a person on the bench of life. Only thing they could do is undermine their own self. They can begin to question their ability, start questioning their self. No, don't question who you are. You got to understand who you are. Continue to study to show yourself approved while you're on the bench. Study life. You know what I'm saying? Learn from mistakes and failures. Realize, surround yourself with brilliant minds. Take notes. Be developed. Get out your feeling. Quit being mad. You can't sit over there. You can't be mad. You understand? Just wait on your moment. I got this terminology that we use because a lot of young folks, y'all don't want to wait on nothing. Y'all want to eat y'all dinner for breakfast. I'll say that again. You want to eat your dinner for breakfast. You want everything right now. You want to go on jobs and demand a raise and want to know how many days you get off, and you only been there a week. You know what I'm saying? You ain't even got 90 days in. Some of you got to slow down and understand I'm a part of this organization and just wait your moment. You know what I'm saying? Put you some time invested with the right attitude. You know what I'm saying? Just do your part. Play your role. You know what I'm saying? Be consistent. Be faithful. You understand? What to God, knowing that you got time. And always remember this while you're on the bench. According to Ecclesiastes, the wisest man that ever lived was Solomon. And he said, time and chance happens for us all. And there it is. Hold on to that point. Time and chance. My time is coming and I'm going to get my chance. And in the midst of it all, I'm going to maximize my potential where I am because I'm in the best season of my life where I am right now. Peace and love. There it is. Until next time.
Thank you for that, Doc.
Hey, bless you, Mike.
We're going to wrap it up here. Keep our brother DJ Cornerstone in prayer as he continues to work on his fundraiser. Will Work for Food. It's coming up on July 29th. You can go to our Facebook page and get any information, or you can go to our website and get any information that'll lead you to where he's doing his fundraiser. Also, we want to mention about the Joliet Family Fun Festival coming up on July 29th. Also, starting at 5:30 downtown Joliet, where we're going to have gospel singing, where we're going to have R&B singing, where we're going to have a lot of food and a lot of fun going on. So come down there and check that out. That's also July 29th, starting at 5:30. And last but not least, our brother Weston, who came on last year and was talking about his production, he's doing another Christmas production coming up in December. We'll be bringing you more information as it comes forth, but we plan on getting that brother back on here to talk about his new production coming in December. Thank you, and thanks for tuning in. God bless. If you have any questions for Doc, DJ, or Mike, please go to MikeDJandDoc.com, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. New episodes released on the 7th and 21st of each month. Matthew 25:40, Good News Translation, the King will reply, I tell you, whenever you did this for one of the least important of these followers of mine, you did it for me. We leave you with this question. Am I helping at least one person? The Mike, DJ, and Doc podcast is brought to you by Silver Cup Investments. Recorded at Audio Hive Podcasting.